Hi, it's Christy again. We're going to continue 7 tips for launching writing workshop. Yesterday I shared with you about finding mentors, right? Talked a lot about that. And then today we're going to talk about the importance of writing. Right. So here we go. Let's get started. First and foremost, it is I think when we're thinking about, like, if you're starting to launch your writing workshop this year, and you're getting ready to start on in 6 days from now. I think the most important thing is to think about writing for a few minutes with your kids when they're writing, and especially at the very start of independent writing time. So that transition from the rug to them getting their spot, like you carrying whatever you want to carry with you. And go to one thing I highly recommend is that you sit at a table with your kids, and a different table every day, maybe a child who's absent, or just pull up a chair and sit at the tables with your kids, so you really are truly part of that community of writers. And so then, depending on what you teach, if you teach kindergarten through 2nd grade, you might want to have a folder. I have like my narrative toolkit, a folder, maybe something like this, or I usually like to, teachers usually like to have the same folder that their kids are using. And then depending on what grade they are, you're going to have the paper that they're going to use. And so if they're in 1st grade, they might, at the beginning of the year, use something like this, and they'll have 3-page booklets. So I want to make sure that I have a 3-page booklet, whether you're in kindergarten or 1st or 2nd grade. Your booklets are what they need and what they'll be starting with, or pre-K. Remember I mentioned pre-K yesterday? Mm-hmm. Because, of course, we're writing books, because that's what we have in our classroom. We have books. And then, of course, this paper really helps us to think about the organization. And so at the beginning of the year, off many grades, most grades start with narrative writing, or small moments, or personal narrative. And so a story has a beginning, middle, and end. So this helps you automatically with that organizational piece. So you grab your magic pen. That's a big, important thing that my schools use all the time, here we go. You grab your magic pen. This is a nice pen for kindergartners to use, because it's the paper, sorry, let me get my glasses and read this, Paper Mate Flare Medium, because it won't bleed through the page. And because it's a flare, you don't have to, it's really nice for fine motor. They don't have to press down very hard to write with it. So important to use pens, any grade level. Remember my mentor, Mary Osborne? She and Roy Peter Clark always talked about the tools and how the tools really matter. Mary definitely was a big one with, like, get them excited, whatever you can do to get them excited. And how special would it be for them to have, like, a magic pen? You talk about using your magic pen because you're writing with such heart and so thoughtful. It's magical. It just all is a magical experience. Let's just call it a magic pen. The power of the pen helps support volume, because we're not erasing anything, but mostly it helps celebrate hard work, and it helps you to see the changes that kids make, and have conversations with them about that. Figure out why they made the changes that they made, talk to them about those things, and celebrate them. It means that they have the reasons and tools, and they're using some of those things that you've taught them, and it's sticking, and you never know that if it was erased. And in addition to that, like, 3rd, 4th, 5th grade teachers, kids come in 3rd grade, revision, big swaths, as Calkins says, like, we want kids to make lots of changes in their work and see the power of revision. They don't want to do it. Why? Because people are perfectionists. I shouldn't even say kids. we want to celebrate hard work, not perfection here. It is about the journey, like Catherine Bomer said. And the way we're going to get better at anything is lots and lots of practice. And we have to see those changes that we make, and we have to celebrate those risks for kids. So the pen helps give us this tool to really see it in big ways and make a big fuss about it with kids. So magic pen, paper, depending on what grade you teach. So important that if you teach 3rd, 4th, or 5th grade, that you have your own writer's notebook. I have support for teachers that come to, that I work with at my institute, and I give them, all kinds of tips or whatever on ways in which to do this. So I have the handout that I give them on like what goes on the writer's notebook, and then I give them lots of writerly quotes, because that's one big thing. I mean, it really should feel as if a writer lives inside this book. And so, I'm very passionate about what goes on the outside. It's not a place for stickers. It's not a place to send the notebook home. A composition book is the perfect thing. A black and white marble composition book is the perfect size. It's a little bit smaller than a spiral notebook. You don't have the spiral stuff sticking out. So there is a way to decorate it in that way, but yet everybody has the same as far as pages and numbers, because we want to consider volume. And, the Common Core says that kids should be writing 3/4 of a page at home in school every day. So the other thing is the kids have to take it home. And honestly, like, if you really want kids to see themselves as a writer and to really know that writing changes you and gives you a voice, and helps you to understand yourself and the people around you in your world, they have to have that notebook and write, not just when they're at school. No writer is only writing at 9 a.m. every day. That might be their time that they go to their desk, but they are constantly living, breathing, thinking about their stories that they're writing, and they're grabbing whatever they can grab to jot things down about that. And that's what we want to help kids to know too, is you have a gift. In 3rd grade, this is a rite of passage. You are now ready to really think about your writing in a deeper way, and so you're going to have this notebook, and you're going to carry it with you everywhere you go. I used to tell my kids, bring it to lunch, bring it to the gym. You never know where a story is going to pop up, right? So the big thing, is that it's really important to have like a decorating party or personalize it in some way. One of my favorite coaches, Kim Stevens from Worcester County, I think I mentioned that district earlier. She actually, with her 3rd grade teachers, she has like a decorating party, and the whole 3rd grade meet in the cafeteria. Kim brings a ton of supplies, glue guns, whatever they need, and so it's just like a big team effort, which is so great. Like, what a way to have, build community, in that way. It can happen at the beginning of the year when you're like, what am I teaching? I'm trying to build volume and stamina, which I'm going to give you some really great tips on how to do that tomorrow, I believe. But we want kids writing on the very first day of school, just not for a very long time. But doing the notebook early on in the first week can help, like, do something fun, fill up some time, but also has to do with writing. So what matters most in the notebook? Here's what I say. First of all, it's great. Some schools use composition books for other subjects. It's great if you can cover it up. And I love everything, as you knew from yesterday. I love everything Georgia Hurd. One of the things I like to do with kids is create something like this, a heart map, for their notebook. So you could take something like Georgia's heart map, where she's got sketches or words or whatever, and breaks up the heart in pieces, and you can have kids write words that matter to them, or sketches that matter to them, and give them different color construction paper, have them cut it out, and then they could wrap it around their notebook as a way to cover it, so large enough that it sort of wraps around. Also, fabulous friend and parent of mine, Carol Freeman, she was one of those parents that just gave you everything you could possibly want or need when you needed it. And when I was, looking to think about contact paper for writer's notebooks, she brought in wallpaper sample books. She brought in like 4 wallpaper samples books that last me, I think, 8 years of my teaching. So you can always find that. And I used to have kids just pick out the wallpaper sample they want. I'd hot glue it, and that covered the notebook. So somehow it's covered, okay? Then the other thing is it should have a title. So it's great to brainstorm with your kids, just chart it out, like what could be some possible titles for our notebooks. This one says, Writer's Right to Discover Their Truth. Writing matters. Write more than you can possibly say. There's the sky is the limit, right? And it's really fun. Like if your kids can help you with that. Susan Gray, again from Worcester County, she had like her kids come up with like write with grit. Like who thinks of this stuff? So, they will inspire you to come up with great titles. I like to bring in puffy paint because it's so inexpensive, and 2 bottles could last you a couple of years. And it just is, again, like what Mary says about the tools that make it fun. So if the outside feels good and looks good, then the inside is going to feel good and feel better, and they're not going to, they're apt to take care of it a little bit better. So let's make it kind of fun and fancy and create a title, maybe use puffy paint. I've also suggested you could get magazines and make words to create your title, something to make it stand out. The other thing that matters so much is quotes, writerly quotes. I have a whole bunch of them that I give to schools, and it's so easy to find on the internet now. Oftentimes, I would just spread them out on the table and let kids pick whatever that spoke to them. Sometimes the kids didn't even really know if it spoke to them yet, but they knew it had to do with writing. And so I think that's the thing. It's sort of the self-fulfilling process, prophecy. Like you pick a writerly quote, and then you become a writer. It's this thing that kind of just makes it magic. So a writerly quote, cover it up, a title that you brainstorm together, and finally a picture. My girl Monique Knight, so amazing. I worked with her at when she and I worked with Lucy Calkins at the Reading and Writing Project. Anyway, she's one of my best friends ever. She's one of the writers in the Units of Study in 2nd grade for one of the 2nd grade books. Anyway, and then of course there's also a picture of my niece Piper, she and I together. But have pictures. That's another thing that can inspire your writing. I have so many stories about Piper and Monique that I could fill up many notebooks that I can write about. And if kids, don't bring a picture in, that's the only thing I ask, that they bring a picture in from home, which you probably would want to, send a letter home to parents to ask for this. If by chance they don't, there probably would be only a few. I would have them go outside during gym or recess and do something they love doing and take a picture of it and develop it for them. So that those are the, I think, 4 big things that I want on the notebook: the title, the quote, the covering of it, and a picture. And I think it's really important that you do this together as a class, all together, so that one notebook doesn't look better than the other, so you can make it your own, but yet we stab some things that we know matter most to help us call this a writer's notebook. It's not just any kind of notebook. It's really special. It's you have this now in 3rd grade, and it's you're going to see yourself differently because of it, and so let's make it really special and powerful. Now, by the way, it's a really big deal in 3rd grade. It's the first time they're getting their notebook, but we want to decorate their notebook in 4th grade and 5th grade and 6th grade and 7th grade and 8th grade. And the way in which we do it might look a little different, but you might use like music quotes or something for 6th, 7th, and 8th graders. But I still, I'll never forget. I think quotes speak to any and all people. My high school teacher, Mrs. Stevens, she had quotes up everywhere in the classroom. I wrote them, every single one of them down. So whatever age you are, I think they're really powerful and inspiring. And then certainly if you have a picture on here of people that you love, that's where stories come from. So notebook's really important, having that. And then Graves, who I mentioned yesterday, Don Graves, he says that when you're writing for your kids, and it's important to write with them for a few minutes, like I said, every day, probably you want to write stories that are around the same age that they are. So if they're fourth graders and they're 9 and 10 years old, you want to think about stories that you had, stories of your life when you were 9 or 10 years old, to share with kids. Those would be the most relatable for kids. Also, the most motivating. One of the ways in which we can get kids to believe that they're writers and get them excited and passionate as we are is through our stories that we tell. And so, thinking about times that you struggled when you were in elementary school. I'll never forget the time that I was the last one running the, whatever it was, something meter. Sorry, I don't do math. But I don't know, it was like 3 laps around the track, and I was the last one coming in, and I was so embarrassed, and I felt like the fattest kid in the class. That's a story I like to tell often with kids. It's not one that I'm proud of, and I think that when we share some of these stories that we might be embarrassed or ashamed of, or that were hard for us in any way, it helps kids to see that we're human beings, and that we're also like trusting them with something that's difficult for us. So I think it gives them, it creates such an incredible bond so quickly when you say to somebody, I trust you with this thing that's really hard for me. It's like, I don't know, it's so powerful. And so you want to write again, to get them to see you as a writer and to transition them into writing workshop, and to help support that independence that we'll talk about more tomorrow. But you also want to think about the things that you're writing and consider sharing those things with your kids, because it will connect you in a way like nothing ever has connected you before with your kids. And the other reason why I think it's really important to write, well, I'm going to tell you that at the end. Let me share the other thing I want to talk to you about. Now, I think it's also really important, if you ever can get me to come to your district, I would love to come, to support you launching Writing Workshop. When I work with districts, I always get teachers to write. That's a big thing that I'm very passionate about. I feel like it's so life-changing for teachers. And so that's one thing that's really important. But if you don't have someone like me come and work with your district, you can get teachers to write. And if you're like, how do I do that? Talk to your principal. Ask them, can you have 30 minutes? I don't know, once a month in the faculty meeting. That's probably a lot. I don't know. But in my school, that was doable. And share some excerpts from both of these books. Don Graves' How to Catch a Shark. Love these stories here. And Writing Toward Home, Tales and Lessons to Find Your Way by Georgia Hurd, is amazing. This book I especially like because she really does, she shares, stories, and then she gives you tips on some activities that you can do. So write down your first memory, let the story gestate, then ask yourself, what's underneath it? Is there any significance to this image in your current life? If so, write about this connection and see where it leads you. So, things like that. But she first has the story. Pick a word, a noun, something concrete, and put it at the top of the page. It could be an arbitrary word, onion, feather, river, sponge, or it could be something you need to think more deeply about. Father, time, love. Now begin to write everything that comes into your mind. Keep at it for at least 2 pages. Let yourself wander. Anything, especially if it's bizarre and crazy. Anything goes. Follow the path and don't be afraid if it veers off somewhere else. Afterwards, go back and jot down next to your free writing the links, the journey from one thought to another. Uncover the connections that you made. After all, writing is meandering, sometimes a stroll, sometimes a fast walk, to a place of dreams, memories, and thoughts you didn't know existed. So prior to that, on that page, she's got, a little story. This one's titled From an Onion to My Grandmother. And then she kind of like talks about that, what she just did. So then talks about it. And so this would be a great activity to do with your staff, to get everybody to write. Now, if you get this ritual, this structure in place, you can take the staff through the writing process, which I'm going to share with you, I think on day 4. And that would help teachers understand the writing process because once you're doing it, it makes more sense to you. But the other thing too, you can create partnerships, and your teachers can always have an audience. You can create a publication date. You might have one like in December, and you hang pieces of faculty's work up somewhere for the whole school to see, and maybe have another one in spring, so that there feels like there's a celebration and something that to work towards. But then the journey getting up to that celebration and publication is about that relationship with that partner, and how that partner helps you to find true meaning and significance in the writing that you're writing, and really supports you and lifts you up in that way. It will form a bond in your building like you've never had before. And it will show to parents and kids like how much you value writing, how important writing is in this building here. So I invite you to do that. I think it's a fabulous thing to do. The other reason why it's really important to write for yourself, it's similar to what I said yesterday about Roy Peter Clark, and he said, if you're going to teach writing, if you're going to have kids in the pool, these are your own children, and you want them to learn how to swim, the instructor better be in the pool. Same thing with the teaching of writing. The more you write, the more you will understand the craft and be able to demonstrate for your kids and give them the craft that they need, and in lifting the quality of their writing. It's very scary, and you're thinking, I don't really know what I'm doing. But the more you do it, the more you practice, the more you read and just do it, you will feel more and more confident, and you will learn more. And then when you're writing and you're like, maybe you're following the units of study, right? And Calkins is saying she's maybe doing a lesson on writing in the moment versus a summary. And you really feel like you're like, and you look at your writing, and she talks about like, is this as if somebody's sitting right next to you, or does it feel like you're sort of telling it from above here? Does it have a bit by bit feeling? And to actually write it bit by bit, like, do you have action? Are you reliving that moment with action, dialogue, internal thinking, setting? And trying it out in your writing to think like, does this work? Do I see and feel what she's talking about? Because if I can do this in my writing, then I know I can do it in my teaching. And when I'm demonstrating for my kids how to get in a moment versus writing in a summary, once I've done it once, twice, 20 times, then I know that my demonstration is going to be clearer for my kids. And I'm probably going to use my writing in my demonstration. And when I use my writing in my demonstration, then I have done the thing, I've done the teaching point, and used it in my writing. And so I have a better grasp of it. I have a better understanding of it. And not at first. It takes time and practice, but in order to get better at it, we've got to try. We've got to practice it, and we've got to do some of our own writing. And it just doesn't have the same feel. For me to imagine how Jane Yolen came up with that simile in Al Moon, I can do it, I can imagine it, but I'm not Jane Yolen. So I'm Christy Curran. So it's better if I do it and really try it and see how it works in my own writing and pay attention to what I'm doing. That's the other thing too. When you read Calkins, she really tries to break that down for you. And so she really tries to sort of break down the demonstratable steps for you, like, first you do this, and then you do this, then you do this. And so when you're practicing, if you are adopting her units of study, her writing units of study, if you're practicing that, then practice it in your writing, and you'll be like, oh, look at that, my writing's so much better, and I understand this. I understand what she's talking about. So I'm going to close for today. But I do want to say that I think, I do want to close again with sharing what Lucy, I mentioned to you yesterday, what Lucy said. So I'm going to read this again. I have seen teachers who do not regard themselves as writers and yet teach writing in wondrous ways. If we ourselves are immersed in an ongoing way in our own writing, we have a fabulous resource to draw from when we teach, which, I mentioned. But it is not necessary to expect that all of us, we teachers, will regularly draft, revise, and publish our own essays and poems. And that's true. I'm going to talk about the writing process, and if you go through it once or twice, you'll get a sense of it. It's not something you're going to do necessarily, all of it. What is necessary, though, let me get back to her words because they're the best. What is necessary, however, is that we have memories of a time when we loved writing, and that we draw on those memories when we teach writing. If we have even once in our lives experienced the power of writing, our teaching will be forever changed. So yesterday, I told you I just finished an institute in another district, Wicomico County, and I received an email from a teacher. It's one of those things, like, if you are working with teachers, it's one of those things that first of all, how busy teachers are. So you just are like, wow, I can't really believe that this person took the time to write to me. And so you feel so incredibly moved by that. I mean, that's how I felt yesterday. I felt so incredibly moved by the fact that this teacher took the time to write to me. But then, during that week, I learned that she does not like to teach writing. She's an outstanding teacher. I've been in her classroom many times, and she said, she said to me over the week, Casey Robinson, she does not, she's not, this is not the thing that she is most passionate around. And she said to me, that she always felt uplifted and renewed attending my sessions. Okay. But she was thanking, this is the big thing I wanted to share with you. Thanking me for taking us through the writing process as part of the Writing Institute. I was so resistant to spending real time on writing. There was so much else I could have been doing in my mind, but I'm so thankful for that experience and, of course, the sharing experience. I have a better understanding of writing from both a personal perspective as well as a teacher's perspective. Thank you so much for all you've done for me as an educator and a person. So for her, she really did not see herself as a writer. And for her to thank me for making her write, which she was kind of like, oh, why am I doing this? That is the greatest email anyone could possibly get. And it just talks and speaks so much to the power of writing and what Lucy says, like, one good experience and you will be forever changed. And that's what we want for our kids and all of us as teachers of writing. We deserve that, we deserve to have that. Yeah, we deserve it. Anyway, I'll end with that, and I'll see you tomorrow for day 3.